Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor, and today I'm going to be continuing my 2019 reading wrap-up with books 41 through 50. If you guys don't know, these are the videos where I do quick miniature reviews of all the most recent books that I've read, but now I've fallen behind, so I'm trying to catch up. Also, if you can tell, my eye is like swollen. I have no idea why. But other than that, let's just go ahead and get started. The first book that I'm going to talk about in this video, I actually finished it a while ago and it never got into a wrap-up, so I'm going to throw it into this one. So I can't remember exactly where I read this one in terms of the previous wrap-ups, but I read The Epic Adventures of the Techno Wizard, The Uncharted Lands by Mike Thayer. This is the second book in the Epic Adventures of the Techno Wizard series. This is a self-published middle grade novel that follows a character named Sam. At the beginning of the book, he's just living his life, he's hanging with his friends, and then a earthquake happens and he wakes up in a different world. In Avalon, there are people that are able to do magic, but Sam is not able to do magic. He's called the Techno Wizard because he has all of these technological gadgets that are with him, and he's able to use them to help the people of this world while he's trying to find a way home. In this one, he is dealing with a new problem. There is this area of the world, the Uncharted Lands, that is causing some problems for the countries around it. He's trying to find allies, and in the process, has to deal with this problem of the Uncharted Lands. Let me see if I can find the map. Yeah, so there's a map in the book, and right here is the Uncharted Lands, and there's a big wall that surrounds it. The people that are tasked with keeping the creatures from the Uncharted Lands at bay are having trouble because there's not a lot of them left and they're getting overwhelmed, and Sam is trying to help them, basically. I originally held off on putting this into a wrap-up because I wanted to do my book review for it before wrapping it up in one of these videos, but I cannot find my notes anywhere. So if I ever find those notes, I'll actually do my individual review. But for now, I did really enjoy this. I like that his relationships with the other characters around him are growing and are developing and are going deeper than they were in the first book. I also like that there are a lot more players involved in the conflict of Avalon, which is the world that he woke up in. There are more players on the evil side than we originally thought, which I've really enjoyed. I think that the main evil character in this book was really well done and kind of terrifying. And I also like that Sam is having to rely less on his technological gadgets and more on his actual mind. Because in the first book, he really relies on kind of tricking the people of Avalon into thinking that he's a wizard because he has like a drone. But in this one, he has to also use his wits on top of the technological gadgets that he uses. I'm still enjoying a lot of the side characters. Willow is still my favorite. She is this nature being, which is kind of like a combo of a tree nymph and an ent from The Lord of the Rings, but she is hilarious. She just is one of the greatest characters in this series. And I also really enjoyed that Roanna, I don't know how to pronounce her name, which is this character is really focused on the big picture. She really has the end game in mind, and she's going towards that relentlessly. I thought in this book that Sam was a little distracted, I guess is the word. He wasn't focused on the big picture, which was kind of annoying me. He kept focusing in on his crush of Roanna. So I was just like, come on, dude, focus on the big problem. You're trying to get home. You're not trying to make a life for yourself in Avalon. So I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's really fun, but that lack of focus on Sam's part was starting to grind my gears. The 42nd thing that I read in 2019 is The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman. This is the third book in the His Dark Materials series. This is a bind-up of all 3, so don't think that the third book is just this long. If you guys don't know, this series follows a girl named Lyra. At the beginning of the first book, she's living at Jordan's college, and she's just trying to live her life, play with her friends, have fun. And then one of her friends is kidnapped, and she decides that she's going to track him down and save him. As the series goes along, it expands a lot more. There are different worlds, there are different races of beings, and there's a lot more at stake than just Lyra's friend. I read this trilogy so that I could be a guest on Snark Squad, which is a podcast that is run by Mari from My Name is Marinez and Nicole Sweeney. So I will leave a link in the description to the podcast where we talk about the Amber Spyglass. It's full-on spoilers, so be aware of that. I ended up giving this one, I think, 3.5 stars, which is what I gave the second book. The first one ended up being my favorite, but after finishing the entire trilogy, I really appreciate the reading experience of the whole thing together, if that makes sense. In this one specifically, I really enjoyed Mrs. Coulter, which is an evil character. I thought she was so well done, and one other character calls her a cesspit of model filth, and that had me laughing out loud. I really liked in this one that a lot of the old characters from the first book came back into the series, so you get to see what happens to them and all of that, which I enjoyed because I was wondering what happened to them after the first book. The ending of the series is not as epic as I was expecting it to be. It's more of a quiet ending, but I kind of liked that about this series. I kind of liked how the series wrapped up and what happened at the end with the characters and where they're at. One thing that I didn't love, however, was there's a character that's introduced in the second book called Mary, and I thought Mary was going to have such a bigger role in this story. I don't really understand why she's there 100%. So in this book, I kept thinking that she was going to have a bigger role to play, but she just doesn't, and I understand that because it is Will and Lyra's story, but I still wanted Mary to be doing something else, but she's just floating around and doing her own thing. Again, I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it, and now it's done. After that, I read A Christmas Story by Truman Capote. This is a bind-up of 3 short stories that he wrote that are all connected to each other. I'm actually going to be filming a book review of this individually, so hopefully that's up before this video comes out. I'll leave it up in the card symbol if it is, or when it gets posted, I'll put it up in the card symbol. This one follows a young boy. He's living in a southern manor type situation, and his best friend is an elderly woman who lives with him. I think it's like his cousin or something like that. Someone that is somehow related to him. And it just follows this little boy and this elderly woman during the holiday season. In this book, it has A Christmas Memory, One Christmas, and The Thanksgiving Visitor. I think I ended up liking The Thanksgiving Visitor the most, and then One Christmas and then A Christmas Memory was my least favorite because when you read it by itself, A Christmas Memory spans a long time, but then if you take it into consideration with the other 2 stories, it makes the first one better. So it's kind of a weird thing. I like that they're all together, so you experience them one after the other, and it gives you like a bigger picture of this boy and his family, his weird family. So I enjoyed the overall experience, but it's not like my new favorite or anything like that. I gave the whole thing 4 stars. If you want to know more of my thoughts, check out that review. I went into a lot more detail of each individual story in that review, so check it out. After that, I read Dry by Neal Shusterman and Jarrod Shusterman. This one is a YA dystopian novel where a bunch of characters living in California are experiencing what's called the tap out. Basically, they run out of water and people are freaking out and having to survive and don't have access to clean water, and what happens with that. I also did a individual book review for this, so I will leave that up at the card symbol if you want to check it out, where I go into a lot more details with the different characters because it follows 4 characters, but then it also follows a couple of random POVs to give you a bigger picture of this entire situation. I ended up really enjoying this book. I liked the different POVs that we got in here, and I liked that they all came from different living situations. The main one, I would say, is Alyssa, and she and her brother are trying to just survive and find their parents and live. Basically, surviving is the key aspect of this book. I think that Neal and Jarrod did a really good job of kind of setting up this world and setting up this event because it's something that could really happen. Like, we might not be that far away from something like this happening in the United States where a resource is limited and people are fighting over it and hoarding it and stuff like that. People get nasty in this book and people are terrible to one another. There are some moments where people are good to one another, which is what you would hope would happen in this situation, but not every character is like that, not every human is like that, and so I thought that it was done very realistically. I've seen a couple of people talk about how they didn't love the number of points of view in this, but I disagree. I think that it was done pretty well. It definitely gives you a full picture of what would happen in this situation. People would think about this situation in so many different ways, and these characters really show that they each have a different frame of reference when tackling the tap out and trying to survive. If you want to know more of my thoughts on this book, check out that review where I go into a lot more details of my pros and my cons, but I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Neal Shusterman is one of my favorite authors, and he continues to be so. really liked this one. After that, I went through a run of reading a lot of comic books, so the next few are all comics. I read Green Lantern Volume 3, which is called The End. This is a part of the New 52 DC universe. I haven't gotten into the most recent one. I'm still reading the New 52 volumes. Green Lantern is my favorite superhero, so I wanted to continue along with this. Not the movie, the comics are good though. I especially liked the ending of this volume specifically. I really liked the formatting of it. I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to spoil you, but here is some of the artwork. It's very shiny, but you can see right there. There's some more. Basically, the people that are in charge of the Green Lanterns are kind of turning evil, and the Green Lanterns are trying to survive and protect the universe. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, I believe. Yes, I did. But there is a volume that kind of came in between volume 2 and volume 3 that I missed and didn't realize was there. So I didn't fully understand everything that was happening in this, and because of that I docked it a star, because you have to read that random one-off volume, but I still really enjoyed this. I then picked up Swamp Thing Volume 2, which is, again, part of the New 52 DC universe. I didn't really enjoy this one very much. It's very, very jumpy, and the art style changes quite a bit throughout the whole volume, so I didn't really enjoy this very much. I didn't think that it was really well done. It seemed very just thrown together, and yeah, I ended up giving it 2 stars. It was just okay. It's about this guy who becomes Swamp Thing, and he's supposed to protect the environment and stuff like that, and there's an evil guy that's trying to stop him from doing that. But yeah, wasn't a huge fan of this one. Probably won't continue Swamp Thing, at least in the New 52 universe, which is sad, so. I then read Justice League Volume 4, which is called The Grid, again, a part of the New 52 DC universe. It's been kind of a long time since I read Volume 3 of this series, but I didn't have a hard time jumping back in. But I will say that if you have not read the one-off Shazam volume that's in the New 52 universe, then it's going to be hard to understand why Shazam is even in this volume at all. There is some issues of Shazam in here, and if you haven't had that experience, you're not gonna understand what's happening. I did like meeting a lot of the smaller players in the DC universe in here. The Justice League is trying to recruit new people, so you get to see some new superheroes that are not like your big staples like Batman and Superman. I really enjoyed this character right here. Her name is Pandora, which was really cool. I really liked her inclusion in this. There's some more of the art, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I liked it, didn't love it, but I would continue with the series. I think the reason why I ended up giving this one 3 stars instead of higher was because the ending wasn't like my favorite, but I don't want to spoil anyone if they're still making their way through the DC universe like I am. And the last comic book that I'm going to talk about in this wrap-up is Batman Volume 5. This is 0 Year Dark City. This is the ending of Batman's origin story in the Batman comics of this run. In this run of the Batman series, Volumes 4 and Volumes 5 went back and started Batman's origin story and told you all of that. So if you already know Batman's origin story, it's not going to be anything crazy new, but I do think that this one was done pretty well. This one deals with how Batman got started with the Riddler. This one was really, really interesting. I thought that the Riddler in this was really well done, and how Batman has to, you know, overcome and try to save the city and all that stuff. I enjoyed the artwork as well. Like, here is a picture of the Riddler in there, and here's a picture of Batman. There's his parents and all that stuff. So, yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I actually really enjoy the Batman comics. I'm not a huge fan of the movies, but I like the comics. And the last 2 books that I'm going to talk about in this wrap-up, because this video is very long, are the first 2 books in a series, so I'm just going to talk about them together. I've actually read all 5 of them, but I'll talk about that in a future wrap-up. I read Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, and also The Sea of Monsters. If you guys somehow don't know, Percy Jackson follows Percy Jackson. He finds out that he is the son of a god, and so he has to go to this camp called Camp Half-Blood, where he is trained to protect himself from monsters because they're going to continue to attack him throughout his entire lifetime. I don't want to go into too many details other than that, if you somehow haven't read this already, but it follows demigods, which are children of humans and immortal gods, trying to survive all of these different monsters and try to save the world, etc. Percy goes on tons of adventures with his friends, and there are tons of prophecies and tons of myths played out again with Percy. There's a lot of cool messages in every single book. I think that the series is really well done. I really love these first 2 books in the series. People say that The Sea of Monsters is not that good, but I disagree. I think that it's just as good as the first one. I still gave both of these 5 stars on reread. I've read both of these 3 times now, and I still really enjoy them. They have a particular sense of humor, so if you don't love a lot of dad jokes and corny jokes and stuff like that, you're not probably going to enjoy these all that much. But if you do like that kind of humor, they are so funny. Like, I just really enjoy them. And the way that the myths are woven into these stories is done so well that if you don't know the myths, sometimes you're going to miss out on what they're talking about. One specifically that I can think of that's in this one is there is a myth about Odysseus's wife from the Odyssey, where all these suitors are trying to marry her, and she has to finish her shroud or something like that, and she is trying to prolong how long that takes, and that's redone in here. And if you didn't know that myth, then you're not gonna appreciate it as much, but if you do know those things, then it's hilarious. It is so funny how it's rewoven into this story, and that happens throughout this entire series, and I just love it. I'm a classical studies major, or I was a classical studies major, so I did a lot of studies on ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and ancient Egypt, and it's just so well done. Like, I love these books. They are hilarious. Definitely recommend them. Still some of my absolute favorites. I'm going to do a review of the whole series together because I read them all in such quick succession. So if I haven't already posted that, I will leave that up in the card symbol or down below if you want to check it out when that comes out. So good. Love these books. 5 stars to both of them. So those are the next 10 things that I read in 2019. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below some of the books that you've been reading. Have you read Dry by Neal Shusterman? Because that one is really interesting. I think Neal Shusterman does a lot of books that are almost like discussion topics. If you read his books, you can discuss the things that they tackle with other people really well. So if you want to discuss Dry and the tap out and everything like that, do that in the comments, and I will talk to you guys next time.